Alright, so we're doing this because people are making some pretty hefty assumptions that I think we need to discuss, not just about me, but just generically when it comes to dating, when it comes to standards, and when it comes to preferences. Salutations and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kadology and I make videos about everything and anything to do with modern society. And that, regrettably, includes myself. So this is, in a sense, a part 2 to my latest video, which is titled Men Reject Women Too, That's Life, and That's Why I'm Celibate. Okay, something along those lines. And I really appreciated, firstly, the comments. Everybody was really so kind and so thoughtful, and it really seemed to resonate with a lot of people. So this in absolutely no way reflects even a percentage of the comments that I got. But I think it is important to actually expand on some things. A lot of underlying assumptions that were made about why I am, for instance, celibate, and also just assumptions being made about particularly the kind of men that I'm interested in. So once again, this is going to be a bit of a personal one, but I think I can sort of tie it in an interesting way to a lot of arguments and points that hopefully resonate and relate to you. Maybe you've been rejected because you like far-right white men who want white women, or at least women who pick better wigs. I felt bad typing it, but somebody needs to tell this young woman the very obvious truth. Also, this wig is very tired and overused. I know she can afford one with at least more tracks. Okay, firstly, I have never made it a secret that I wear not wigs but weaves. It is really not a secret. In fact, millions of women across the world throughout history, as well as men, have been wearing wigs, have been dyeing their hair, have been cutting and styling their hair. It is kind of a tenet of being in society, not just modern society, but pretty much any society in human existence and history. I think a reality that a lot of, especially I would say modern men, need to realize is that the woman who they see with beautiful, long, luscious hair, it isn't actually their hair. There are a lot of secrets with regards to a woman's beauty and beauty routines and procedures that are deemed to be natural, which really are not. And it's absolutely fine. It really is. I, for instance, when I was at university, never wore makeup, no cosmetics. I did not wear wigs or weaves, anything of the sort. And when I left university, I started experimenting with makeup and cosmetics and with wigs and weaves. And honestly, I have been treated like a woman, and I have been treated with attention that I actually prefer and like. Men find me more attractive when I look like this. Women also find me more attractive when I look like this. And I like that because I am a human being and it makes me feel better. I feel more comfortable. Of course, there are flaws in anything and there are problems with anything. For instance, I recognize now that I do have quite an unhealthy obsession with makeup. I, for instance, cannot even go out and put out the rubbish without making sure that I have at least some concealer on. I cannot go out with my natural hair ever. I just can't. It's a thing just with me personally. But you know, it is what it is. We all have insecurities. So I don't think we should be shamed about that. Because I make no secret that I am wearing a weave, I am also very aware that it doesn't look like natural hair, and that obviously is not the aim here. Yes, it has to do with an amalgamation of things, including, I would say, the vast majority of which is insecurities, as well as an almost non-existent self-image when it comes to not wearing makeup, not wearing a weave, etc. But that is just reinforced by the fact that I have been on both sides of the spectrum. I've been somebody who doesn't wear any cosmetics, any makeup, doesn't dress in a feminine way, and I am now at this point. And well, I prefer being at this point just in terms of how I feel out in public, in terms of the attention that I have garnered from individuals, from people, not even in a romantic sense, but just in terms of people being a lot nicer to me. And I guess you could say that that's commentary on our society or just a commentary on just everything, but it is what it is, and I accept it because that is life. This is something that I get a lot in not just my videos and not just in the comment section, but also in emails. I love reading your emails when I have the time, but I do spend 90% of my time not on the internet. This is my job, so I don't respond to emails hardly ever, only on the very off and rare occasions, so I do apologize for that. I rarely respond to emails. I do read all of my emails. It may take me about a year to get to your email, but I get a lot. But just based on the sort of reading the first lines of an email or just going off the title of an email, I get a lot of emails which are about this assumption that I only date white men, that I only am friends with white people, and that I have a racial preference. Now, I want to be very clear. I have absolutely no problem with preferences. In fact, all human beings, irrespective of what they try to purport, have preferences for everything. Not just humans and relationships, but just even what they put into their gob at the beginning of the day. Preferences are just a part of life. However, I think in this day and age, especially with social media and especially with dating apps, which I absolutely loathe in every sense of the word, we have placed our preferences above real life. Because the thing is, when I reflect on all the individuals whom I have actually been in relationships with, all the individuals whom I've fallen in love with, whom I've been even physically attracted to, none of them fit into any of my preferences at all. None of them fits perfectly into my preferences in any shape or form. And I think that is what is not only scary about life, but also kind of beautiful and exciting about it. Because I never imagined that I would be physically attracted to the people whom I have gone to bed with. In my wildest dreams, I have been attracted to all manner of men. And that's because I have really made it a mission to not be on dating apps and to try to be as distinct from them and their criteria and what they place as expectations as is humanly possible. Now, I think an important distinction needs to be made, especially with regards to the time that I did spend on dating apps. When I went on dating apps, I would get lots of responses from men, lots of responses, as do most women on dating apps, because as we know, almost 80% of people on dating apps are men. And so when you look at that and the fact that I said I have gotten quite a bit of attention from men on these dating apps, it doesn't make sense to, I think, a lot of people when I say that I've been rejected by men and that I am celibate based on that fact. But then we need to look at the flip side, which is that I don't text, and I hate texting, and I hate what dating apps have ultimately forced us into. This idea that we can form a relationship founded purely on a profile picture, purely on social media profiles, and purely on text messages and on words, because that is absolutely in no way reciprocal or in any way correlates to how we actually interact, how we actually form relationships, how we actually form opinions, how we actually find ourselves attracted to someone. Because what would happen when I matched with somebody, when somebody started talking to me by sending me a message, is I would say pretty much the same thing after about 2 lines of text between us, namely a hi, how are you? Oh, I'm well, thank you, how are you? Sort of thing. And what I would say was roughly this. Hi, I'm sorry, I really don't like social media, online communication. It just feels very arbitrary, not terribly sincere, and I'm terrible at texting and responding in a sort of reasonable manner. I'm a serial ghoster, basically. So if you're interested, I would love for us to just go out for a drink at your earliest convenience so that we can actually just get to know each other properly and just see where it goes from there. And as soon as I said that, I can tell you that 99% of these men would either not respond to me or just say no. I get that in this day and age, especially with sort of the things that I found, at least when I first went on dating apps, I found were sort of the talking points and were the things that were important. Especially with men, they tended to feel that they had to show off to me. And by showing off, I meant showing off in terms of their job and their income, in terms of their height, in terms of their looks, that it was things that really actually, when it came to meeting them, didn't matter to me and haven't actually mattered to me. And I don't say this in the way that, oh, I don't care how much a man earns or whatever because, well, you know, I'm just such a great gal and all of these sorts of things. No, not at all. I think my opinion on sort of money and status and things like that has a lot to do with my childhood and upbringing, which was very abnormal and very distinct from, I would say, the majority of people's upbringings in the modern world. I was, if you don't know, fostered, then adopted, then fostered again throughout my childhood. And by this, my life was quite tumultuous. I quite literally went from living in what I would deem to be a mansion, living in wealth with a maid, with somebody who made my bed and cooked my meals 1 year, to then living in a small room with a whole family, to then living in a boarding school. My life was just so many different things and so many different experiences of wealth and privilege or otherwise. And because of that, everything has seemed and appeared incredibly fleeting, particularly money. And in that way, YouTube is kind of a good job for me. 1 month I can make $100, the next 2,000. So I'm very good at sort of adapting to instability and to the instability of things and just going with it, which is why I sort of have this attitude of really not caring about a lot of things. And this has sort of been reflected in my adult years. I went from being at probably one of the world's most prestigious, most expensive, most high-class universities to working in a superstore and now to being a YouTuber. So my life really doesn't exactly stay on course. And I'm also, as a consequence, not a terribly aspirational person. My life has never been an upward trajectory, and that is not really my aim, at least financially speaking and in terms of status. Contrary to popular belief, whenever somebody asks me where I went to school, what I studied, where I graduated from, and then I tell them, their response is always, well, why aren't you doing politics? Why aren't you in London? Why aren't you a consultant? Why aren't you doing what everybody else who did your course is doing now? Why aren't you in government? And the truth of the matter is, I don't care for it. Life is too short, and it isn't something that I feel would make me happy or fulfilled. It isn't something that I find terribly interesting, beyond that of merely making YouTube videos about it, because it's just a whole different experience and it's wonderful. And I think based on just reading some of the comments that I got from my last video, people find this quite a hard concept to grasp, that there are people in this world, in fact, I would say there are millions of people in this world who really don't care about those types of things, who really don't care about how much money a man makes, because I really don't. The last man that I loved, who was not my last ex, but just one before, he was a security guard. Yes, the security guard who works nights, walking around a construction site or a mall. Yeah, that was my last love, whom I absolutely loved and adored. And you know how we met? We met in person, because that is the thing that I have always valued. Every single person who I've actually had a long-term relationship with, I have met in person, and they have asked me out in person, in the flesh. And that means so much to me. I have found myself attracted to people purely because of their smile, because of them smiling at me, because of them looking at me, because of us locking eyes, if you want to call it that. And these are people whom in absolutely no way fit what I would deem to be my preferences that I would put on a dating app or I would put on paper. And it's great because it means that, therefore, this translates into a lot of my apolitical views. I don't care if you are left-leaning. I don't care if you are right-leaning. I don't care if you make 100K a year or if you make 15K a year. My last true love was a security guard who lived with his mum. And we were so happy until he dumped me on his birthday for no viable reason and then just disappeared. But this isn't about... This was years ago. It's fine. We've moved on. We have moved on. I think it's very important for us to actually not just reckon with our preferences, but to actually just realize that we really cannot fit people into our preferences. What we have to do is have to sort of accept that our preferences are just sort of there as sort of a guiding light, I suppose, but that life is far more complex than anything that our preferences could ever fathom. I mean, I've found myself head over heels for men who are shorter than me, men who have beer bellies, who have graying temple hair, men who have tattoos all over their bodies, men who literally look like they've just emerged from a cave, men who are so prim and proper and clean cut and just the amalgamation of what you would call a slick, clean modern man. I've been head over heels for all of them, and absolutely none of them fit into my preferences whatsoever. That includes racially. I wouldn't say that I particularly have a racial preference, at least not one that I would consider to be irrational, because I think one thing that I get from a lot of comments, particularly from my US audience, is what I see sort of generally on YouTube. Because YouTube is just very Americanized and very America-centric, it therefore seems to project this notion that the rest of the world is like America. And I find that when it comes to talking about Black issues, that then is almost equivalent to African American issues. That everything that has to do with Black is seen from that lens of African American issues and African American concerns and perspectives. And by that, I include sort of African individuals who have African descent who live in Canada as well, in the North Americas. So when it comes to my context and when it comes to where I live in a country where the vast majority of people are white. I live in a city, in a town, city, what have you, in which I can go for a week without seeing another Black person. Seriously. Therefore, inevitably, because I am surrounded by a vast majority white population, because I am therefore friends and interact with people and I'm acquainted with people who are about 99% of the time white, I therefore am going to be attracted or drawn to those people more just because that is how I live and where I live. I don't go online for anything but work-related things or to binge watch The Golden Girls, okay? Let's be honest. So naturally and just logically, I would be attracted to white people, and the majority of people whom I have dated have been white. Not all, because I have dated Black men. I have dated Black women. I think that it doesn't matter to me in the way that is at least purported by this comment or by others like it. The last person I dated was a lovely, charming Black man. We just didn't have anything culturally in common. And I have, in all honesty, found that, at least when I have dated at least native Africans who have immigrated or are living here as students in the UK and in Cambridgeshire, where I live, that we do have cultural differences, which I have found difficult, at least when we have spoken in person and gotten to know each other, to get beyond. Because of my upbringing, I am very European. I'm very westernized. I'm very, shall we say, white. And I don't like to make generalizations, but just to keep things simplistic. As I said, money and wealth is not something that has mattered to me in my upbringing or now, presently. And I do find that, at least with the Black men that I have dated, that money is a big thing for them, particularly insofar as proving that they have money. And also with at least the Black men that I have dated, they have all made it quite clear to me that they are interested in a woman who doesn't need to work. That is, that they make enough money money, that they have enough of an income that a woman wouldn't have to work, and that children would be important to have, not necessarily a priority, but just an important aspect. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I really am not attracted to that. I've never been attracted to old money nor new money. It's not something that I care too much about. I am very much a person who cares about experiences when it comes to things such as, for instance, I do aim one day to own a home of my own. And the reason I want to own a home of my own is because, at least in the UK, 99% of landlords don't allow you to have pets. And I really want to have a dog and a cat. And that is the most viable means for me to actually have control over that decision. And when I say home ownership, I don't mean a mansion. I really could not care less. It's actually very interesting. I was on a date with a man a few months ago, and he was a black man. It was interesting because he was, he is incredibly aspirational. He's incredibly wealthy. He has great things going for him in life. And that was a big selling point for him. But even though I can see that, at least in our day and age with dating apps, where that is very much a selling point, that is not something that coincidentally is something that attracts me to a man. I found that it was a turn-off for me, that emphasis on wealth, his love of designer clothing, his love of being able to at least show me, I wouldn't say love, but his ability to show me that he could buy me such things. And this leads on to another comment. Chances are high you wear too much jewelry in order to attract the guys you like. It makes you look tacky, demanding, and self-involved. Most smart and well-off guys are into girls who are as interesting as easygoing and natural, yet effective in female looks and behavior. My dear, you are tacky. Right, so I found this incredibly interesting. As you know, I love my jewelry. As you know, I love getting my nails done at least once every 2 weeks. And you can't smell through the camera, but I love Chanel. I love expensive makeup. I love Charlotte Tilbury. All those, And I'm not going to lie, I love those things. But you know what I love most about those things? I love that I buy all those things and that I always have. I buy my luxury makeup. I buy my luxury cosmetics. I pay to get my nails done. I pay to get my hair done. I pay for my Chanel perfumes. I do all of that. And that's what I love about it, because I value these things a lot. And they're things that I like to do. I like to pamper myself. I would hate it if somebody else paid for that pamperage or pampering. But at the same time, I love camping. I love boot camps. I love the beach. I love swimming. I love extreme sports. I love all these sorts of things, which I don't publicize on this channel, which I don't publicize at all on social media because, well, as I said, 90% of my life is offline. And I think this just feeds into, firstly, a point that I want to make, which is that you only see about 30% of me, of who I actually am on this channel. This is the same with dating apps. This is the same with all social media. You do not see a whole person. You see, firstly, the best of what a person wants you to see, or an image of what somebody wants you to see. You don't see a person. Nothing about it is real. Nothing about it is wholly real. And that's why I think in-person communication and contact and getting to know people is so important. I could never get to know somebody over the internet, and I could never get to know somebody through my YouTube channel or form a relationship, an actual genuine relationship, romantic relationship with somebody beyond it merely being a parasocial affair. The comment is an absolutely lovely comment, but there is one sentence that I found very, very interesting and that I'd like to elaborate on with regards to what I have been saying. An irony that I cannot help but notice is that I actually wrote an email to you a while ago, but you never replied. I wonder why. This is not a passive-aggressive judgment, but genuine curiosity. And I'd like to respond to that in this video because I thank you, Vlad, and I do remember your email. Vlad sent me an email which actually asked me out on a virtual date, and he sent a link to his website. And it was very interesting because the website is a website in which he is a coach, I believe, or a sort of guide for women and I suppose also men in terms of dating and dating advice and that sort of thing. I'm not necessarily sure precisely what it is, but I think it was because of that I actually just thought that it was a product that you wanted me, Vlad, directly to you, that you wanted to go on a date with me because of this product that you were selling, ultimately your time to customers in order to improve their dating skills. So that was why I didn't respond. So I do apologize. I did not realize that it was genuine interest, but now that I realize, it ultimately doesn't change the fact that I have a hard time, and I actually will admit that I have gone on a date or two actually with people who have subscribed to my channel and have seen me out and about in Cambridgeshire and have asked me out. The thing with that is, what I have noticed with that and with individuals who know me online, is that they ultimately know who I am online, which is, as I said, only 30% probably of who I am, and therefore they want to talk to me about things that are of a more intellectual caliber. Now, if you ask any of my friends if I am intellectual, or if I talk to them about Dostoevsky or about the meaning of life or about hermeneutics, they will laugh you into a corner, because this is really only one side of me. I am a very complex person, and you know what, so is every single other human being on this earth. And I think what the internet has done is it has really created or fabricated this notion that this is our all, that this is authentic, and by authentic, the entirety of our authenticity, which it really isn't. I definitely fall into this, and especially when I get comments of people who are just absolutely lovely and so kind and say that I have helped them or that I really resonate with them. It's phenomenal to read, but it's also very difficult in life to sort of live up to that expectation. I mean, just a very trivial example, I was at a grocery store a few months ago, and this young woman and her friends, they were there, they were students, and they suddenly started laughing. And I realized that they were laughing at me. They said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It's just, we know you from YouTube and you're just so short." I know they meant no ill intention by that comment at all. It hurt in the moment, I suppose, but also it was quite funny. I mean, let's be honest. It just made me think sort of how actually, not even with just the physical things, but also just the conversational, the discourse and the dialogue, the personal things, how individuals actually just are so much more than what you can get possibly from a curated profile, from a little paragraph of information, from an Instagram account, from a Twitter feed. I call BS. She has either been chasing white men validation or only wanting a small percentage of black men because a lot of black men would date her. Stop it. Okay, I hate this so much. I really do. I really, really hate this. Right. This is a very interesting conversation to have just in general, because I think it is something that has inevitably in my life just fed into a lot of my perspectives and also my preferences because of just my lived experience. I'm South African. I come from probably one of the most racist countries on earth. And I also live in the UK, where I am a racial minority. When I recall all the racist instances that I have been privy to, regrettably, the majority of those instances have been black people being racist toward me, saying things such as I should be ashamed of my skin color, that I'm a disgrace to black people, that my skin is disgusting because it is on me, because I'm not black. So, when we think just emotionally and not logically, because nothing to do with attraction, with dating, with love, with romance has really anything to do with logic, right? If we think emotionally about this and rather irrationally, who am I going to be more drawn to just in terms of having conversations, just in terms of interacting with? Especially because since I was born, my mother didn't want me, My father didn't want me. No black families wanted me. No black people wanted me. I was fostered and adopted and fostered again. I was cared for. I was fed by white people. I was given clothes by white people. I was given an education by white people. And yes, it is definitely not as simple as that. This is all due to, of course, institutional, cultural, historical influences which made it such. But in terms of people showing me as an individual actual compassion, especially in my childhood, it came the vast majority of the time from white South Africans. And that inevitably, whether I wanted to or not, influences the people who I am most drawn to, just in terms of befriending, in terms of even having, I guess you could say, preferences. Although importantly, like I said at the beginning of this video, none of the people who I'm actually attracted to or who I have dated, who I have slept with, have in any way met any of the preferences that I could put down on paper. And I think that's a good thing and an important thing. And that is something that we should all appreciate and reckon with. When I sort of read things on Reddit of people talking about their husband or the person that is their significant other, I cannot tell you how many comments I read of people saying, I would never think that I would be with this person. This person is not somebody who I would have dated, who I would have married, who I would have seen myself marrying, being in a relationship with, finding myself attracted to, building a life with. And I think that's a wonderful thing, because I do agree, even though I don't agree with the school of life on much, I do agree with Alain de Botton that you will marry the wrong person, or you will fall in love with the wrong person, or you will become intimate with the wrong person. But I think the important thing is, at least for me, is that yes, I will fall for the wrong person inevitably. I will marry the wrong person inevitably, but I want to do it for the right reasons. And for me, the political leanings of a person, how tall a person is, how much money they make, their race is not a good enough reason for being with someone. And so I may, yes, of course, have those preferences, but when it comes to real life, I actually find myself in absolutely no way subscribing to them, because life is just so complex and just makes no sense. In terms of guys that I have dated, I've only dated one guy who has a university degree. In terms of guys that I've liked, which includes a guy who's featured on my channel, Nelson, I had a huge thing for Nelson for a year. He never knew. If he watches this video, then he will know, but I did. But unfortunately, Nelson's always dated like the most stunning Instagram model-esque woman, so I had no hope. Educational intelligence has not really been something that I've been attracted to, even though on paper that definitely is something that I would be attracted to. It makes perfect sense, you know, I should be. But I've always found myself very much attracted to, I guess, sort of emotional vulnerability. Sort of somebody who wants to talk about things, about really anything, as long as we can sort of hold a conversation. And yeah, that's always sort of been it, even though on paper I'd never put that down, but that has sort of been what's worked. So I guess with all of this being said, in terms of all the men that I've been attracted to, the men who are my preference, I really don't know, because I mean, right now I found myself attracted to a guy who in absolutely no way meets any of my preferences that I'd put on paper, but I think he is the bee's bloody knees. So, you know, it's just, I don't know, we just have made ourselves and are just making ourselves so miserable and so unhappy with this attempt to sort of rationalize things that needn't be rationalized, with our attempt to sort of shame people about their preferences, even when these preferences really don't mean anything, trying to shame people into dating individuals who have the same political views as them, trying to claim that people are right-wing. For anybody who's wondering, I'm not right-wing. I don't care how much you tell me that I am right-wing just because I'm apolitical. I do not care about people. I care about individuals whom I know and love. And that is all I can do, viably, realistically, and all that I want to do. Of course, I care about issues insofar as reading the news, etc. I'm not going to go down this route because we've done this before, and we will probably do it later on in other videos. But I really cannot offer more than just who I am as a human being, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. And it's incredibly patronizing having individuals tell me that I am something because they know better, even though they seemingly come from a part of the political spectrum which is trying to humanize minorities by giving them sort of agency over their thoughts and feelings and prospects in life. But, you know, all politics is basically hypocrisy, contradiction, paradox. So I can't expect any more. I think in terms of the guys that I am attracted to, I really cannot tell you because it just fluctuates and just goes in directions that I would not imagine in my wildest dreams. And I think that is what makes relationships and can make relationships so exciting and enticing. The unexpected and just going with it. I don't care. And I really mean that. I do not care. I don't care if you are a PhD student. I don't care if you have a 6-figure income. I don't care if you live in your mom's basement and are a security guard. We all have different things. We all have different wants, expectations, whatever. But I can't offer any more than that. And, you know, if I've caused you offense, I've caused you offense. I'm not going to apologize for it. I can't apologize for it because it is what it is. So let's just be a bit, I guess, a bit more empathetic toward one another, because we really are making ourselves so miserable, so sad, and so angry at the end of the day. And there really isn't a need for it. But anyway, I'm going to go and meet my 50-year-old white friend, and we are going to talk about the latest episode of Catfish. I don't just read books and talk about things. So thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate each and every one of you, even those of you who do not understand me or cannot fathom what I'm going on about. I appreciate you greatly, and I'll see you very soon in the next one.